The 7th graders have begun a unit about citizenship where immigration is one of the hot topics. We thought, as a team, what better way for the students to understand what immigration was like in the beginning of the start of everything than to go through it themselves. So students began with passports and fake money from their countries. They went first to a station where they were processed. At this station, their passports were looked at, their names were changed, many of them, just like some of our ancestors' names were changed. I know my own grandmother had her name changed when she came to Ellis Island. The next station was medical. Just as the immigrants were coming off of their ships or ship, they would be processed by a medical doctor. This doctor would then diagnose anything that they found, whether it was mental illness, trachoma, whatever it was. There was a symbol and a letter for each ailment, and depending on the ailment, some of these immigrants were detained for further review.
So what would happen in real life is they would get another round of interviews and other medical exams to see what, so if you said the detention is like preliminary, then you get checked again. If it's truly wrong, then what you're gonna have to do is you either get passed through by, from further questioning, you're deemed, satisfactory to pass through into New York, or you're sent back on a ship to wherever you came. So it's, just because you're detained doesn't mean that you're not gonna make it into America, if you will.
The next stage was that of the interview. Immigrants would go through a lengthy interview asking why they were coming to the country, who they know here, what their plans were, how much money they brought, and last but not least, one of the important hot buttons, I guess you could say, is whether or not they had a criminal history. These questions were a form of intelligence that the United States could gather on their immigration process to decide who would be great candidates for the future of America. Next, students were able to walk to a table where there was an IQ test, and at this table, students would perform a little tangram puzzle. This is similar to actually something that the early immigrants at Ellis Island went through. The early immigrants were asked to solve a wooden jigsaw puzzle, and the purpose behind this was so any sort of intellect or decline thereof in intellect was noted, and there was a possibility of these persons being detained or sent back. Lastly, students were able to go to the exchange station where a postal worker was able to exchange their money for American money so that they were able to buy and purchase things here in America. This unit on Ellis Island is something that we believe the students needed to experience to understand better. What better way to learn than to walk in someone's shoes? And these students were literally able to walk from station to station in similar situations and note what kind of experiences the early immigrants to America were able to experience.
When I went through the Ellis Island experience, I think that it was really hot outside, so I'm sure it was also hot and sweaty for the people outside that had to wait in a really long line with everybody. I think it was crazy for the immigrants just because with everything going on that it was probably nerve-wracking, and I bet they felt violated being asked so many questions with all the stations they had to go through, and I'm sure they were there all day, and I feel like the last thing they wanted to do was be sent home, so I feel like there was a lot of pressure on them just to try to answer all the questions correct and honestly.
I feel like the immigrants felt like scared and anxious because they asked a lot of questions. They asked questions about like your health, have you ever committed a crime, and I feel like they were nervous and they had to be super patient because it's a lot.
I feel that the money exchange was probably unfair because you might come here with like a bunch of money in your country, but you only get like $10 back from the American dollars. And you would probably have struggles living because you wouldn't have enough money to provide for you and your family, and it would probably be hard.